All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving deep into a story from the Philippines in the late 90s. And this one's a wild ride. It starts with a simple workplace rivalry, the kind of thing that happens all the time. But this one, it spirals into a full-blown, terrifying war of sorcery and revenge. And get this, it's not just some old legend. This is a true story about real people, real dark magic, and the absolutely devastating fallout. So, this entire account comes from a guy named Oliver who's telling us about his father's horrifying experience. His dad's name was Hereno. Now, Hereno and his best friend, Sandro, were basically inseparable. They'd known each other forever. They were these young, really talented welders working together on a huge construction project, just trying to make a living and build a future. And they were really good at their jobs. So good that they both got promoted to supervisor. You'd think that's great news, right? Well, not for everyone. This promotion, it didn't exactly win them any friends. In fact, it lit a fuse of pure jealousy among their coworkers. Especially this one guy, Leo, who was absolutely convinced he'd been passed over unfairly. So it starts as just, angry whispers and a few veiled threats. It explodes into violence. And of all days, it happens on Hereno's birthday. He's leaving a bar and someone just ambushes him. He was brutally stabbed, disemboweled, and literally left for dead. It's an absolute miracle he survived. But the thing is, he had no memory of who did it. The attacker was just a shadow in the dark. So while Hereno is laid up in a hospital bed, fighting for his life, his friend Sandro is just consumed by rage. He's absolutely convinced he knows who's responsible, one of those jealous coworkers. And he makes his friend a promise. He tells Hereno, "Don't you worry about a thing. I'll find who did this, and I'll get justice." But then he says something chilling. He's gonna handle it his way. And Hereno had no idea what that meant. But he was about to find out. His best friend, well, he wasn't just a welder. Sandro's idea of justice wasn't about calling the cops. It was something ancient, something terrifying, pulled straight from the darkest parts of Filipino folklore. See, what Sandro practiced was a form of dark magic called barong. This is some seriously feared stuff. A practitioner called a mamba barong can inflict just unimaginable pain or even death on someone from miles away. And how do they do it? They magically put foreign objects, things like insects or, shards of glass, directly inside a person's body. It's horrifying. So one night, Hereno was watching his friend, and he's just completely bewildered and honestly pretty disturbed. Sandra is performing this really bizarre ritual. He's carefully shattering glass bottles into tiny pieces, lighting candles on the floor, and setting out this small spell book next to a creepy little wooden skull. Hereno's like, "What on earth are you doing?" But Sandro just brushes him off, tells him to just wait and see. Well, he didn't have to wait long. Just 3 days later, the purpose of that ritual became horrifyingly clear. Their main rival, Leo, the guy they were sure was behind the stabbing, he suddenly gets violently sick. He dies, screaming in agony behind the construction site. And the cause of death? He had passed nothing but blood and, you guessed it, shards of broken glass. After Leo is dead, Sandro just lays it all out for Hereno. He confesses everything. He reveals that he's a mama barong, that his grandfather taught him the dark arts years ago to get revenge for his own father's murder. And he's totally unrepentant. He insists this wasn't murder. It was justice, an eye for an eye, just, delivered with a whole lot more cruelty. But if they thought that was the end of it, they were dead wrong. This bloody act of revenge didn't end the conflict. No way. It basically kicked off a war. See, Leo's family didn't think his death was some medical mystery. They knew exactly what it was: sorcery. And they decided to fight fire with fire. So what did they do? They went out and hired their own spiritual practitioners, known as albularios. Now, you have to understand, a lot of albularios are just traditional folk healers, but some are masters of spiritual warfare. They can't just defend against a curse. They can throw one right back at you. A full-on sorcerer's duel was about to kick off. Okay, so after that first project wraps up, Hereno and Sandro move on to their next job. And where is it? Of all the places in the world, it's in Leyte, the home province of Leo and his entire family. Talk about bad luck. They're basically walking into the lion's den. And Sandro, with his senses, he feels it immediately. They're being watched, not by people, but by powerful, unseen forces. And then it happens. The attack comes one evening, completely out of the blue. Sandro just cries out and collapses to the ground. Nobody touched him, he wasn't sick, he was just paralyzed, pinned down by some invisible, mystical force. The counterattack was on. Barely able to speak, Sandro explains what's happening. He says he's being spiritually nailed down, caught in a powerful binding curse called agapos. And he can feel it's not just one person, it's the combined power of 3 rival sorcerers hitting him all at once. He's completely overwhelmed. He can't fight them off by himself. Here at Gano is, as you can imagine, absolutely terrified. He wants nothing to do with this. But Sandro gives him this grim, impossible choice. He says, look, if they kill me, you're next. They're gonna come for you because you were the whole reason this started. So to save them both, here at Gano has to be initiated into the dark arts right then and there and help his friend fight back. He literally has no other choice. So after this rushed, terrifying ritual, Hereno is now an unwilling apprentice to a sorcerer. He's not just a welder anymore. He's a soldier in a supernatural war, about to go face to face with the people trying to kill him and his best friend. Okay, so first they manage to take out one of their 3 attackers from a distance. Then they set a spiritual trap for the other 2. They arrange a meeting, an ambush, in the woods. But when Hereno confronts these 2 elderly albolarios, he doesn't attack. Instead, he rips open his shirt and shows them the horrifying scar from the stabbing. He explains the whole story, that Sandro's revenge was an act of justice for what was done to him. And shockingly, the 2 sorcerers, who are weakened by the trap, they listen, and they agree to a truce. But it wasn't going to be that easy. The albularios give them this chilling warning. They say, okay, we understand and we'll back off. But Leo's family? They will never stop. And even worse, the family of the other albulario, the one they had just killed, they're going to want revenge too. This whole bloody cycle was nowhere near finished. And that warning, plus a betrayal that happens almost immediately, it pushes Hereno and Sandro to a final, absolutely brutal decision. They realize there's only one way this ends. They will never ever be safe as long as their enemies are still breathing. Just before they skip town for good, they decide to spy on their rivals one last time. And what they hear is just a complete shock. They're hiding in the dark, listening, and they overhear the exact same albularios they just made a truce with, plotting with Leo's cousin. They were planning to bring in an even more powerful sorcerer to finish them off. The truce was a total lie. Well, that was it. No more talking, no more truces. That night, Hereno and Sandro went out to a secluded field and performed one last massive ritual. They pooled their newfound powers together and aimed them like a weapon at their final targets, those 2-faced albularios, Ulas and Breno, and Leo's cousin, Dan. Their decision was simple: leave no witnesses. No one left to carry on the fight. And they got away. They left Ley, and for a few years, it actually seemed like it was over. They got back to their lives, worked on new projects. Hereno even got married. It looked like they'd found peace. But this kind of magic, it has a long memory. One day, out of the blue, Hereno gets the news: Sandro is dead. He died suddenly, violently, vomiting blood, a textbook sign of a powerful curse. It had to be a final act of revenge from a relative of someone they had killed. So when the dust finally settled, the body count was just devastating. Think about it. This all started with a promotion and a stabbing. It ended with the deaths of Leo, all 3 albularios, and Leo's cousin, all taken out by sorcery. And then, finally, Sandro himself. 5 people dead, all because of a grudge at work. Hereno was the only one who survived, but he was haunted for the rest of his life by what he'd done. And his story really makes you think, doesn't it? It forces you to ask that impossible question: where do you draw the line between justice and pure vengeance? And at what point does the search for justice become its own kind of curse, one that just devours everyone and everything in its path?